teachings, practices, interpretations, and opinions presented in this series reflect the traditions and perspectives of the Temple of the Two Guides and the Church of Thessaly exclusively. They are not presented as universal to all forms of Hellenic, Hellenistic, Neoplatonic, pagan, polytheist, occult, or theurgical practice. Ancient traditions were historically diverse, and modern practitioners likewise hold a wide range of beliefs, customs, and interpretations. This series is intended as a presentation of our own temple tradition, philosophy, and religious practice.
Throughout this series, we've watched the cosmos emerge from chaos. We witnessed the first appearances of Gaia, Ouranos, and the primordial powers. We watched succession unfold through conflict. We saw Kronos overthrow his father, only to become trapped by the same fear that destroyed the ruler before him. We witnessed the rise of Zeus, the Titanomachy, and the defeat of Typhon. But now something changes. The great battles are over. The age of cosmic revolution comes to an end, and the myths begin asking a different question. Not, how did order emerge, but rather, how is order maintained? Because creating order is only the beginning. Keeping it is far more difficult. And it is here that we begin to understand one of the most misunderstood figures in all of Greek religion, Zeus himself. When most modern people hear the name Zeus, they imagine something very different from what the ancient myths actually present. They imagine an all-powerful creator god, a divine ruler whose personal will determines everything that happens, a being standing above reality itself. But the mythology never describes Zeus this way. In fact, one of the most remarkable aspects of Hellenic theology is its refusal to make Zeus the creator of the cosmos. Zeus did not create the world. He did not create Gaia. He did not create the heavens. He did not create fate. He did not create necessity. He did not even create the laws that govern existence. All of these realities already existed before Zeus ever became king of the gods. The cosmos was ancient before Zeus ascended the throne. This distinction is absolutely critical, because Zeus does not enter myth as an originator. He enters myth as an administrator. He is not the architect of reality. He is its steward. To understand this, we need to return briefly to the aftermath of the Titanomachy. The Titans have fallen. Kronos has been removed. The Great War has ended. Now comes the question that every society eventually faces. Who governs, and how? The answer the myths provide is surprisingly sophisticated. After victory, Zeus doesn't simply seize everything for himself. He doesn't absorb all authority. He doesn't declare himself sole ruler of every realm. Instead, the brothers cast lots. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades divide the cosmos by allowing fate to decide. The sky falls to Zeus. The sea falls to Poseidon. The underworld falls to Hades. Notice what is happening here. Authority is distributed instead of monopolized. Jurisdiction is established and boundaries are defined. The cosmos becomes organized not around a single power, but around differentiated responsibilities. This is not the behavior of a tyrant. It is the behavior of an administrator. The myths are teaching something profound. Legitimate authority is limited authority. A ruler whose power has no boundaries becomes indistinguishable from chaos itself. This is exactly what destroyed Kronos. Kronos attempted to prevent succession. He attempted to halt the natural processes of existence. He tried to consume the future, and in doing so, he became the very disorder he feared. Zeus learns a different lesson. Rather than fighting against reality, he governs within it. Rather than abolishing boundaries, he establishes them. Rather than preventing differentiation, he coordinates it. This is why Zeus succeeds where his predecessors failed. He rules with the structure of reality instead of against it. One of the clearest demonstrations of this appears in the story of Sarpedon during the Trojan War.
With this, Sarpedon leapt down from his chariot with all his weapons. Patroclus saw him and jumped out to meet him. As on a high rock when two vultures fight with crooked beaks and carving talons, screeching their noisy cries, so loudly those two men screamed as they rushed together. At the sight, the son of crooked-minded Kronos, Zeus, spoke up and told his wife and sister, Hera,
"What a disaster this will be for me. The man I love the most of all mankind, my son Sarpedon, is assigned to die, killed by Patroclus. I am of two minds, wondering if I ought to lift him up alive and take him from the battlefield, the source of tears, and carry him away and set him in the fertile land of Lycia, or kill him now beneath Patroclus' hands."
Hera, the ox-eyed goddess, answered,
What? What have you said, disastrous child of Kronos? You want to free from painful death a mortal whose lot was dealt out long ago? Then do it! But none of us Olympians supports you. Now let me tell you this, take it to heart. If you convey Sarpedon to his home alive, watch out. Some other gods may also decide to take their offspring from the battle around the mighty town of Priam, fight numerous sons of other deathless gods, who may do likewise, and incur your raids. If your heart grieves for him because you love him, let him be killed in battle by Patroclus, son of Menecius, and when life and spirit have left him, then send death and gentle sleep to take him to his spacious Lycian homeland, and there his brothers, family, and neighbors can mourn him with a funeral mound and gravestone. This is the prize due the dead.
Now Sarpedon was Zeus's son. He was a hero beloved by the king of the gods. When Sarpedon's destined death approaches, Zeus hesitates. The Iliad presents a striking scene. Zeus wonders whether he should save his son, whether he should intervene, whether he should defy fate itself, and Hera immediately confronts him. If Zeus rescues Sarpedon, she argues, then every other god will demand the same privilege. The entire order of destiny would collapse. The system would unravel. And so Zeus makes a painful decision. He allows fate to proceed. He allows his son to die. The king of the gods weeps, but he doesn't overturn destiny. This is such an important moment in our theology, because it demonstrates that even Zeus operates within limits. He enforces fate, he doesn't invent it. He administers necessity, he doesn't abolish it. His greatness lies not in exemption from law, but in fidelity to it. This point has profound implications for how we understand divine action itself. Many religious systems encourage the expectation that a god will intervene to suspend consequences, alter reality, or rescue individuals from the natural outcomes of their choices. The faithful pray, and the deity is expected to step outside the ordinary structure of existence to solve a problem, remove an obstacle, or reverse a misfortune. Thessalian theology generally operates from a different assumption. If Zeus himself does not abolish fate, override necessity, or exempt even those he loves from the lawful order of the cosmos, then the purpose of religion cannot be to secure exceptions to reality. The gods don't exist to rescue us from the structure of the cosmos. They exist as powers operating within that structure and helping sustain it. For this reason, Thessalian theology does not teach that the gods are cosmic wish granters who rearrange reality according to personal desire. Rather, it teaches that spiritual life consists of bringing oneself into greater alignment with divine realities. Through prayer, ritual, virtue, contemplation, and theurgical practice, the devotee gradually harmonizes with the powers that govern existence. When a sailor understands the winds and currents, they do not command the sea. They learn how to navigate it. Likewise, the devotee doesn't seek to command fate or compel the gods to overturn the order of things. Instead, they learn how to live in accordance with the currents of reality itself. This alignment often produces real transformation. Obstacles become clearer. Decisions become wiser. Opportunities become more visible. The soul becomes more capable of acting effectively within the conditions it has been given. Yet this is not because divine law has been suspended. It's because the individual has become more deeply integrated into it. The goal, therefore, is not rescue from reality, but participation in reality. The gods do not remove us from the cosmic order. They teach us how to inhabit it more fully. The closer we come into harmony with divine powers, the more our actions, choices, and lives reflect the structure of the cosmos itself. In this sense, the blessings of the gods are not exemptions from law, but deeper attunement to it. This brings us to a fundamental principle of Thessalian theology. Power without restraint is tyranny. We have already explored this theme repeatedly. Uranus represented enclosure, Kronos represented fear, Typhon represented unbounded chaos. Each embodied power divorced from limitation, and each ultimately failed. Zeus survives because he accepts boundaries. He becomes the model of lawful authority. Not authority that can do anything, authority that knows what it should not do. That lesson remains just as important today as it was 3,000 years ago. As the myths continue, Zeus's role becomes increasingly administrative. The cosmos begins to resemble a kingdom rather than a battlefield. The gods receive jurisdictions. Athena governs wisdom and strategy. Apollo governs prophecy, harmony, and order. Artemis governs boundaries, wilderness, and transitions. Demeter governs fertility and cultivation. Poseidon governs the sea. Hades governs the dead. Each deity exercises authority within a specific sphere. Zeus does not replace them, he coordinates them. The king of the gods does not perform every function himself. Instead, he ensures that every function remains aligned with the whole. This is governance in its most mature form, not centralization, coordination. This arrangement also carries an important lesson for polytheistic practice itself. Modern practitioners sometimes fall into a pattern that unintentionally mirrors monotheistic habits. A devotee may become deeply attached to a particular deity and gradually begin treating that god or goddess as the source of all blessings, all guidance, all protection, and all spiritual authority. Over time, the deity becomes a functional equivalent of a monotheistic god, while the rest of the pantheon fades into the background. The myths themselves caution against this approach. The Olympian order is not built upon concentration, but differentiation. Each deity possesses a distinct jurisdiction, a unique mode of operation, and a particular relationship to the cosmos. Athena does not replace Demeter. Apollo does not replace Artemis. Hermes does not replace Hades. Even Zeus does not replace the other gods. Their powers overlap at times, cooperate frequently, and complement one another, but they are not interchangeable. A healthy polytheistic spirituality therefore reflects the structure of the cosmos itself. Just as the divine order is maintained through the harmonious cooperation of many powers, the devotee should cultivate awareness of the many divine influences operating throughout life. Different situations naturally call for different relationships. One may seek Athena's wisdom when making difficult decisions, Demeter's blessings for the household, Hermes' guidance during travel or communication, Apollo's illumination in matters of truth and understanding. Attempting to force every need, every prayer, and every aspect of life through a single divine relationship can produce spiritual imbalance. It asks one deity to occupy roles the mythology never assigns to them. More importantly, it narrows the devotee's perception of the divine world. The result is often a gradual reduction of polytheism into a form of devotional exclusivity, where the richness of the pantheon is replaced by a single dominant relationship. The myths suggest a different path. The goal is not divided loyalty, but integrated participation. Just as a healthy society depends upon many offices working together, A healthy religious life recognizes the many divine powers active within existence. The devotee need not worship every deity equally, but neither should they forget that the cosmos itself is sustained through cooperation among distinct powers. In this sense, mature polytheism mirrors the governance of Olympus. It is not a matter of choosing one god against all others. It is learning to recognize which divine powers are present in a given circumstance and approaching them with the reverence appropriate to their jurisdiction. The lesson of Olympus is therefore the lesson of polytheism itself. Order is sustained not through concentration of power, but through the harmonious coordination of many powers working together as one cosmos. This becomes especially clear when we examine Zeus's most important jurisdiction. Many people assume Zeus rules thunder, but thunder is only a symbol. His true domain is relationship. Zeus governs the spaces between beings, the bonds that make society possible, the promises that allow trust to exist, the structures that transform isolated individuals into a functioning community. This is why Zeus is so frequently associated with oaths. The Greeks called him Zeus Horkios, Zeus of oaths. An oath isn't just a promise. It is a sacred act that placed the speaker within Zeus's jurisdiction. To swear falsely isn't simply to lie. It is to undermine the trust upon which society itself depends. And myth repeatedly demonstrates that Zeus does not ignore such violations forever. The same principle appears in the stories of Lycaon and Salmoneus. Zeus is said to have come as guest to Lycaon, disguised as a mortal traveler. However, Lycaon suspected that this guest was possibly a god in disguise, and he wanted to test his assumption. Together with his sons, Lycaon murdered a commoner of his city and mixed the human flesh with other meat, and set it before the mysterious guest at a banquet. Zeus immediately saw through the trick, and, in anger, he overturned the table and slew the sons of Lycaon and destroyed the palace with a thunderbolt. But for their father Lycaon, Zeus changed him into the form of a wolf. So, what's the story telling us? First, we see that Lycaon ruled without justice. He treated human beings as expendable. He violated the trust that legitimizes kingship. And Zeus destroys him, not because Zeus is angry, but because rulership without justice ceases to be rulership at all. This story is often misunderstood if it is read merely as Zeus got angry and punished a bad person. However, the deeper issue here is legitimacy. Lycaon is a king, and a king's authority depends upon trust. His subjects must believe he governs for the good of the community. When he treats human beings as disposable objects, he destroys the very relationship that makes rulership possible. His kingship becomes unintelligible. The throne remains, but the legitimacy does not. Zeus therefore removes him, not because Zeus is personally offended, but because the structure of lawful authority has collapsed. Lycaon isn't punished merely for impiety. He is punished because he has abandoned the relationships that make civilization possible. By violating hospitality, kingship, kinship, and trust simultaneously, he places himself outside the order that Zeus governs. His transformation into a wolf symbolizes the loss of participation in civilized and divine life. The myth teaches that authority divorced from justice becomes predation, and predation ultimately excludes itself from the protection of divine order. Salmoneus commits a different offense. Salmoneus was one of the 7 sons of King Aeolus of Thessaly, who led a group of colonists to the Peloponnese, where he established the kingdom of Salmonia in the region later known as Pylos. Salmoneus was an arrogant, impious man who demanded his people worship him as the god Zeus. He even went so far as to impersonate Zeus by driving around in a chariot, dragging bronze kettles to make thunder, and casting torches in the air as faux lightning. Zeus was enraged and struck Salmoneus dead with a thunderbolt and laid waste to his city. Salmoneus attempts to manufacture authority through spectacle. He wants fear without legitimacy, power without law, appearance without substance, and Zeus strikes him down. Once again, the lesson is clear. Authority cannot be counterfeited. The symbols of rule mean nothing without the reality behind them. This is why divine punishments often feel different from later religious ideas. In many religious traditions, punishment is understood as divine anger, a personal response, or an emotional reaction of the deity towards the human. Thessalian theology presents something more complex. For us, punishment is seen as the natural unfolding of disorder once alignment has been lost. The individual is no longer participating in the principles that sustain them, and as a result, they become exposed to forces that were previously held in balance through their alignment with divinity. The result feels like judgment, but it is really a revealing of what happens when order is abandoned. Sallustius said that to say the gods punish us for misdeeds is like saying the sun turns its back to the blind. This understanding also changes how we should think about leadership. Because Zeus is not merely a theological figure, he is an archetype of governance, a model of sovereignty. The myths present an important lesson. Leadership is not domination. It is administration. The leader is not the source of everything. The leader is the steward of relationships, the guardian of boundaries, the keeper of procedures, the protector of legitimacy. A healthy institution does not depend on one person doing everything. It depends on many functions working together coherently. That is exactly how Olympus operates. And that is why Zeus's authority endures. No discussion of Zeus can avoid one of the most common modern objections: his numerous affairs, seductions, and relationships with both mortal women and goddesses. For many readers, these stories appear to contradict everything that has been said about Zeus as the guardian of law, order, justice, and legitimate authority. How can the king of the gods serve as a model of lawful sovereignty while simultaneously engaging in behavior that appears morally questionable? The question is understandable, but it often arises from a fundamental misunderstanding of how myth operates. Modern audiences frequently approach these stories as though they were reading a biography. Zeus is imagined as a powerful individual whose personal conduct is being evaluated according to modern moral expectations. The myths are then judged as though their primary purpose were to provide a record of divine behavior. This approach, however, imposes assumptions upon the myths that the ancient world did not necessarily share. Mythology is not scripture in the modern sense. It is neither a historical chronicle nor a divine autobiography. It is a symbolic language through which cosmological, theological, political, and spiritual realities are expressed. The gods are not merely characters within the narrative. They are powers whose actions often represent the interaction of principles rather than the private choices of individuals. This becomes particularly evident when we examine the outcomes of Zeus's unions. The stories rarely focus upon romance itself. Instead, they culminate in the birth of figures who alter the structure of the world. Perseus defeats monsters and establishes dynasties. Heracles restores order by overcoming forces that threaten civilization. Minos becomes a lawgiver. Helen becomes the catalyst for the Trojan War. Dionysus introduces a new mode of divine participation within human life. Again and again, these unions produce transformative consequences for the cosmos and for humanity. The narrative emphasis is not sexual conquest. The emphasis is emergence. From a theological perspective, these myths often describe the meeting of divine and mortal realities, producing heroes, kings, founders, and agents of change. The concern of the myth is not the private life of Zeus, but the appearance of new forces within history. This does not mean every story should be accepted uncritically or interpreted as a moral lesson. The Greeks themselves often questioned, debated, and reinterpreted the myths. Philosophers such as Xenophanes criticized the tendency to imagine the gods behaving like flawed human beings. Plato likewise argued that many traditional stories should not be understood literally. These criticisms are themselves part of the Greek tradition and demonstrate that ancient audiences were fully capable of distinguishing between theological truth and poetic narrative. For Thessalian theology, the central question is therefore not whether Zeus's actions conform to modern standards of personal morality. The question is what the myths are attempting to communicate about the relationship between divine power and the unfolding of history. When Zeus is understood primarily as an office of sovereignty rather than a divine personality, the focus shifts. His significance lies not in his romantic life, but in his jurisdiction. The myths consistently return to the same themes: the establishment of legitimacy, the maintenance of order, the confirmation of kingship, the enforcement of oaths, the protection of hospitality, and the preservation of cosmic balance. To reduce Zeus to a catalogue of affairs is therefore to mistake the narrative vehicle for the theological content. It is to focus on the surface imagery while ignoring the deeper structures the myths are attempting to reveal. This does not require dismissing the stories. It requires reading them with the same depth and seriousness we bring to every other part of the tradition. The myths are not asking whether Zeus was a faithful husband. They are asking how divine power enters the world, how history is shaped by higher realities, and how order is sustained across generations. Those are the questions the theology seeks to answer. The stories of Zeus's unions are one of the ways the myths attempt to explore them. Though the myths and stories of Zeus, Thessalians understand that lasting authority cannot be built on fear. It cannot be built on spectacle. It cannot be built on unlimited power. Those things create tyrants, not leaders. True sovereignty emerges from restraint, from legitimacy, from fidelity to law, from the ability to coordinate complexity without destroying it. Zeus does not endure because he is the strongest. He endures because he understands limits, because he governs relationships rather than controlling every outcome, because he preserves order without becoming order's enemy. And that may be the deepest lesson the myths offer. The world is not sustained by raw power. It is sustained by lawful relationships, by boundaries respected, by promises kept, by authority exercised with restraint. And in our theology, no figure embodies that principle more completely than Zeus, king of the gods, steward of the cosmos, and guardian of the fragile order that allows the world itself to endure. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Inside the Temple. If you enjoyed this exploration of Zeus and the deeper meaning behind the myths, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with others who are interested in Greek religion, philosophy, and the ancient mysteries. Every like, comment, and subscription helps us continue producing these educational videos and documenting the growth of our temple and community. As we've seen, the myths often reveal something very different from what modern audiences expect. Beneath the stories lies a deeper theological vision, one concerned with order, legitimacy, relationship, and the structure of the cosmos itself. And nowhere is that more important than in the figure we'll explore next. In our next episode, we'll turn our attention to Hera. For many people, Hera is remembered primarily as the jealous wife of Zeus. Yet this familiar image barely scratches the surface of her significance within Greek theology. Who is Hera beyond the stories? What role does she play in the maintenance of cosmic and social order? Why was she honored as one of the most important goddesses in the ancient world? And what can her myths teach us about legitimacy, family, community, and belonging? We'll explore all of that and more in the next episode. Until then, thank you for watching, and may the gods illuminate your path.